proposal. I just want to clarify that the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube for those of us watching the meeting at home, and will be available afterwards as well. If you are viewing tonight's meeting and you do have any comments or questions that maybe not brought up during this meeting, perhaps you're more than welcome to call the planner in the file or send her an email, and staff will do their best to answer any questions you may have. And also, before we proceed with the meeting as well, just want to clarify that this is not the only public meeting. This is actually the first public meeting. It's a neighborhood meeting. At minimum, there will be another public meeting, and that would be the statutory public meeting. Normally that's held in front of the Committee of the Whole, and that is scheduled for a later date, most likely in 2021. And then members of the public will also have the opportunity to speak for or against the proposal at that meeting, and there will be future notification as well. Okay, so the slide before you is the subject lands.
Sorry,
yes.
Before you begin, I just want to ensure that everyone that comes to the meeting this evening can provide their names, email addresses, and even mailing addresses to us so that we can notify them of the public meeting when it comes up in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks.
In terms of the subject lands, for those that aren't aware, the lands are located on the east side of Market Street, south side or south of Gray Street, and then east of George and north of Marlborough Street. So the subject lands at 32 Marlborough Street are not part of this proposal, just to clarify. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. In terms of the development proposal, this is the conceptual site plan that has been submitted to the city amongst the extensive list of reports and studies that have been prepared to facilitate or to as part of a complete application for these proposals. The applicant is proposing to develop the lands for a mixed-use building. It will consist of a 5-story podium that fronts onto Gray Street and Market Street. And as part of that as well, there will be 2 11-story towers above for a total of 16 stories. There are also 10 street townhouse dwellings, you can see from the images shown on the screen. And those units will front onto Gray Street, George Street, and Marlborough Street. Commercial uses are also proposed at street level, as well as some amenity space for the residential buildings. As part of the proposal as well, there is a level of underground parking and 4 levels of parking above grade that are integrated within the podium structure that I had just discussed momentarily ago. Now we're going to provide an overview of how the planning process works and then pass it on to the applicant to address their proposal. So the zoning bylaw and official plan amendments are applications that are required under the Planning Act, and that is what is being presented this evening. The official plan is a framework of goals and objectives of the city that provides land use designations and policies which will guide future development. The zoning bylaw puts the official plan to effect. It essentially states how land may be used, where buildings and other structures can be located, the types of buildings that are permitted, and how they may be used. It also regulates, items such as lot sizes, dimensions such as lot width, parking requirements, building heights, setbacks from streets, etc. That's the general difference between both the official plan and the zoning bylaw. So with respect to the official plan, the subject lands are currently designated general commercial and major institutional. The lands are also within the city's urban growth center. As part of the official plan amendment, the applicant is requesting to amend the official plan designation from major institutional to general commercial. And with that land use designation, the general commercial, the intent is that it would apply to all of the properties that are part of this development proposal. Next slide, please. The lands are currently zoned general commercial exception 19 and general commercial exception residential, 76, and also residential conversion zone and institutional major zone exception 6. Long story short, the C8 zone is the commercial zoning, and it does permit some residential uses such as dwelling units, mixed use buildings, but it also permits commercial uses, retail stores, shopping centers, etc. Whereas the exception 19 that I had referred to restricts uses specifically to dwelling units, offices, and retail stores. With respect to the C8-76 zone, it essentially enforces a minimum of 39 off-street parking spaces required for the current Alexander, the tavern use that's existing today on the subject lands. With respect to the RC zone, it permits uses such as townhouses, single detached dwellings, group homes, etc. And then lastly, the I3 zone permits uses such as homes for the aged, school residences, retirement homes, and group homes. The site-specific exception 6 in that zone restricts permitted uses to only retirement homes. So as you can probably gather, there's a few zoning designations on these lands. So the intent of the zoning amendment is that the entirety of the property would be rezoned to a site-specific use to facilitate the development proposal. And as I had indicated, the developer or the applicant, sorry, is requesting to zone the property's mixed commercial residential zone. With that, I will now pass things on to the agent, who's Martin from Weston Consulting, and his team will go over their proposal as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff, for that great overview, and thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everybody. My name is Martin Quarkapome, and I'm a professional planner and associate with Weston Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the owner and applicant of these lands, the Rosso Group, to present our proposal for a 16-story rental mixed-use building. With me, as part of the panel, are the owners from the Rosso Group. We have John Mellenbacher here, as well as Charles Mady. And as previously mentioned, we also have our architect here, Edward Thomas from SRM. They'll be available for questions later on after my presentation, should there be any inquiries about things I'm going to be able to answer as a planner that may be more appropriate for the owner to answer, or if there are more specific questions related to the building design and architecturally, that might be more appropriate for our architect to answer as well. I am just going to rearrange my screens here and share my screen. I'm going to put up a presentation that I can walk through quickly with everyone here this evening. Okay, hopefully this is working and we all can see the first slide of my presentation. So what I'll do is I might streamline my presentation a bit. Jeff, being the good guy that he is, went over a bit of the planning policy and a background on this particular site. So I'm going to kind of fast forward or kind of skip through the background planning policy and get really into the meat of the presentation and some of the details of the proposal. So this is an aerial of the subject lands that gives a bit of context as to how the lands are comprised, what the land uses are, and surrounding land uses. Again, Jeff, you've done a good job in going over this slide and the next couple. So I'm going to kind of flip through these quickly and fast forward. This slide provides an overview of the official plan, designations and the zoning, the various zoning categories that apply to the lands, which we're trying to clean up and make a bit more consistent for the property. And I'm going to start really a presentation on this slide. The city is undertaking a new official plan, which is near the end of the process in terms of adoption. And I understand that this will be hopefully going to council for adoption early next year in January. But what this slide shows is the urban growth center area of the downtown. And for those who have eagle eyes, that little red star at the top of the plan here is the property, subject lands. And we are identified within the upper downtown precinct, which is supposed to invite and plan for higher densities and built forms that could accommodate the urban growth center designation, which really stems from provincial policy and accommodate future developments around the VIA station, which one day will be a GO station, as well as the downtown bus station. This next slide is from the city's draft design manual. This is, again, a draft document that's supposed to be a counterpart to the official plan. And this is supposed to provide some guidance to urban design and how lands are supposed to be developed to ensure that they fit within their context. And what this slide is showing in that called orange dashed overlay is the VIA rail station gateway. And it's supposed to identify this area as having supposed to have key special features to ensure that quality urban design are provided to accommodate for mid and high-rise buildings, and to ensure that we provide a friendly and enticing streetscape along the major roads. And this slide is intended to show the various transit networks that are within the area. I've mentioned the Via Station, Future Go, as well as existing Go bus station that's further downtown, and the various local transit system and routes that are available currently within the city. As Jeff mentioned, we're here to redesignate the lands and rezone the lands for a more cohesive set of categories that would allow for a mixed-use building that would allow our 16-story, my apologies, as well as the retail function that we're providing for along Market Street. This is the same plan that was shown earlier through Jeff's presentation, but the table on the right-hand side provides a bit more detail into the different components of their proposal. As mentioned, we've got an reverse L-shaped building, which has a 5-story podium, which will contain a mix of retail, residential, amenity space for future residents, and parking. Parking will be provided in 1 level below grade, and we'll have approximately 32 or so spaces at grade for more so short-term parking, and the majority of the long-term parking will be within the building, within floors 2 through 5. And I'll get through to a slide in a bit in terms of how that would all be laid out within the first few floors of the building, and how that will complement the neighborhood as it transitions into a more of an urban setting. The total number of units on this proposal is 216. We've got a good mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms that are proposed for this project. And one of the elements that I want to highlight are these quote-unquote townhouse units that we're proposing. So along Marlborough, Market, and Gray, we have at-grade units that actually have front doors. They'll have front doors, they'll have small patios and gardens. So they'll act like a traditional townhouse unit, but they'll be within the actual apartment structure, and they would have access to all of the amenity features that are within. And again, there's a slide coming up that will illustrate that function at grade. Now, the landscaping for the development, I think is quite good. We've done our best to landscape the areas that will have high traffic areas along Gray and Marlborough. The areas that have those townhouse units have significant landscaping to allow for those private amenity areas that also spill out into the public realm. The Market Street side, we are providing about approximately 2.5 meters of road widening. So we will be dedicating a big portion of our property to the city to improve the condition of Market as it stands today. There'll be a mix of landscaping, wider sidewalks, a better opportunity to include street furniture that currently isn't there today. And this slide is intended to show the landscaping and amenity space that's on top of the 5th story. That green space in the middle there between the two tower portions of the building are the outdoor amenity garden areas. So in addition to the indoor amenity space, which will hold typical uses like gyms and lounges, we're offering an outside amenity space, which is beneficial, especially in these times that we're in, to have people outdoors to use these areas where there'll be seating, barbecue areas, and areas where we can have great landscaping as well. This is the ground floor plan of the building. It's quite busy, but I'll walk everyone through what we're looking at here. So on the left side of the drawing is Market Street, and that's the primary entrance to this proposal. That's where all vehicular as well as the predominant pedestrian traffic will flow from. The vehicular entry will give way to short-term parking, the ramp to the underground and below ground parking are to the north and south of that internal driveway, and that will go all the way out to George Street on the left-hand side of the diagram. The called peach or orange areas on the top and bottom of the plan are the 10 townhouses, 10 townhouse units, excuse me. And I've mentioned that these will have their front doors, example right here and here, that would allow entry into their units, and also provide for their patios and their private amenity space. What we've tried to do is ensure that Market Street has a good sense of activity along that street frontage, the major corridor within the city. So what we're showing here in the blue is the amenity space. We'll have lounges and gyms and people activating that front portion of the building, while in the brown over here is about 2,200 square feet of retail. The exact uses aren't determined at this point, and they likely won't be for a bit, but we wanted to make sure that we plan for it appropriately and have some of those active uses that spill out into the street. And you can see how the retail is slightly set back from the rest of the building, and that would allow for proper pedestrian movements. And depending on the use, if it's a coffee shop, for example, you'd have space for patios as well. Next slide is outlining what the podium will look like for floors 2 till 5. It wraps around the majority of the building, and what we again tried to maintain was active real street frontages along the street. The orange, what you're seeing here, are actual residential units. So despite having parking within these floors, we wanted to make sure that when you're looking at this from any side of the street, you're seeing activity, you're seeing lights flicker, you're seeing people on balconies, you're seeing all of that. So we're hiding the parking away from the majority of the frontages, and tucking the parking inside, away from those predominant views from the street corridors. The following few renderings were also shown in Jeff's presentation, and I'll run through these fairly quickly. I've noticed that my notes here, in terms of the figure numbers and views, are swapped. So the image on the left is the north view, and the image on the right is the south. And I'm not an architect, and I don't claim to be. So if there are any specific questions on materiality and textures, I'm happy to divert that question over to our architect to provide a bit more detail and do this a bit more just in terms of the features of those elements. And again, a few other views of the building from the various sides, showcasing the treatments and materiality, a bit of the landscaping around the property that we're looking to add or improve, as well as the internal amenity space within that main image in the center there. These last two images are just more views of what's happening at the street level. I've said a lot about pedestrian environments and improving the streetscape. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of focused in about what's actually happening along that level. So the upper image is the main entry from Market, and this is what you hopefully will see at some point in the future, where you have the entry to the driveway with a lobby to one of the towers, and then where it says restaurant will be the future retail. And that's also intended to activate that street. I've been to this property numerous times, and the street corridor is a bit cold in terms of what's happening in that part of the city. So we're looking to add some landscaping, add some street furniture, add some trees to make sure that we add something to the city, and that makes sure that everyone can enjoy something as well. And the image on the bottom is a corner of Market in gray. To the left of that particular image, you can see the townhouses just over here, if you see my cursor, that will provide that indoor, outdoor transparency for those units that have the ground-related entries as well. Now, for the next steps in terms of where we go from here, Jeff was right that this is the very first meeting that we wanted to have with the public. Get your feedback in terms of what you think we're doing right. If there's other things that you think that could be improved, we'll take some notes. I've got my planner here with me, Scott as well, taking some good detailed notes. So we'll ensure that anything said today we'll take back and we'll provide responses to planning staff when we intend to resubmit this application shortly. And following our resubmission, we'll be moving towards a statutory public meeting, committee of the whole for hopeful recommendation on the application, and ultimately it moves to Councillor Wall and City Council to make a decision on what they think of this proposal and this project. And assuming that we were successful, following that approval, we will be looking to submit a site plan application to do more of the detailed design of the building, give precise details on the layouts and the tree species and the access and all that stuff. So there's a lot more steps to go in this process, and this is probably the first real step in gathering public feedback to facilitate the eventual approval, hopefully, of this project. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to give this back to Jeff or Nicole, and we can start the next part of the agenda. Thank you.
If I could interject just for a moment, I just wanted to announce that we are having some technical difficulties with streaming this live through our YouTube account. They are trying to sort it out. The meeting has been recorded, so we can post it tomorrow. We're just having difficulty streaming it live through YouTube. And Jeff, if it's okay, I'll just open up the comments and questions period for anyone who has questions.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so our first question is from a Mr. David Bissett. David, if you could just go ahead.
I was wondering how many of the units, 216 units, will be geared to income. There are a number of buildings on that site that have multiple dwellings in them. And also there's above Alexander's, there's a rooming house that houses a lot of our vulnerable citizens. So is the developer incorporating some geared to income housing in this development?
Thanks, Dave, for that question. The answer is yes. I might defer a bit of this response to Charles Mady, but Drossel is working with CMHC to work up the details of how we can make some of these units really affordable to the public. So that element is part of this proposal, and that portion of the approvals part is to come. I don't know, Charles, if you want to add anything further to that?
Okay,
David, was that your only question you had?
No, I was wondering, does the, of those 216 units, a lot of them will be geared towards, the 3 bedrooms will be used towards families. What amenities will there be for children? And I was also wondering about children coming from the tower going to Central School. How will they come down and exit off Market Street to ensure they get to school safely? Okay,
I'll answer the first part of your question first. In terms of the amenities that are available, the exact details of that aren't quite defined yet. To be honest, the amenity programming isn't quite done. It's a bit too early to define how those spaces will be programmed. But because we will have 3-bedroom units that will offer the ability for families to move in. We'll have to program those spaces to allow for children to live and play. So the amenity spaces that are in the building will have to have some space geared to younger individuals, as well as how we treat that above ground space on the top of the 5th story as well. And there is a park right next door that could offer a bit more called traditional youth recreation that may not be provided within or on top of this building. To answer your second question, in terms of how people enter and exit, maybe what I'll do, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to share my screen again and bring up the site plan that shows the details of the property. Okay, here we go. So if you can see this, So as we've illustrated, there are 2 towers proposed as part of this building, and there are 2 lobbies as well. So I mentioned the primary access is right off of Market, which is here. So there's 1 lobby that is central to call it the Market Street Tower. And then there's a second lobby that is at the north side of the property for Gray. So you're not going to have 216 units of people exiting through 1 elevator corridor and out 1 door. Things are spread out a bit. And of course, those 10 townhouse units will have their own private, they can't go through the interior corridor outside, but they also have their patio doors to exit as well. Did that answer your question, Dave?
Yeah, it's given some clarity there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, was there any follow-up questions you have?
Well, I guess this one kind of goes to Councillor Wall in the sense that we do have a lot of people in those buildings that are going to need some assistance finding other accommodations, particularly the residents above Alexander's Tavern. Most of them are single men, and it is, I'm hoping social services through the city can help facilitate them finding new accommodation, because I'm involved with the Blessing Center. I see these people and I know how they're paying a good amount of money now for this room above Alexander's, and I'm hoping that the city can facilitate them finding new accommodation when the time comes.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for your comments on that. I mean, that's something that's near and dear to me, making sure that every person in our community has the opportunity to have a roof over their head. From what I've been told, the people who currently live there now have been given notice. They are aware that this is happening. And I would hope that they have reached out to their workers through their, whoever their worker might be, and advise them so that they can make sure that they're put on, the list, and that they're, but they could also reach out to me directly as, one of their representatives, and I will gladly help facilitate a conversation with, anyone. And I am excited to hear that there is going to be a geared to income element in the property itself as well. But if you want to have a conversation about this, not here, don't hesitate to give me a call anytime, okay?
Thanks for your help.
Yep.
Okay. Just before we get to our next question, if everybody could just mute themselves if they're not speaking. I do hear a bit of background noise, so that would be great. And our next question comes from David Madison. David, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
Our band hall is noted on the site plan, and we depend on street parking at the present time. Do we know whether we'll be able to continue parking on the street, or is that parking lot that I see, is that going to be available for parking? We have rehearsals twice a week. We have a lot of students coming into our building, so there's quite a lot of traffic in any given week. So we have cars coming and going, and we need we need parking. Is that going to be on-street parking available, or that parking lot?
Sorry, I was muted. Hi, Dave. In terms of the street parking, we will not be altering what is currently available in terms of on-street parking. That's within the city's right-of-ways, and that's their domain. And if street parking exists today, then it will exist tomorrow. But that parking lot that you see in the lower left corner of the plan right now, that's intended to accommodate the building and the retail that is proposed within the building. So it's not intended to function as call it a public parking lot, but perhaps I can speak with my clients to see if arrangements could be made to use that area in maybe off-peak times when you've got students at the school.
Our use of the hall is almost exclusively in the evenings. In other words, that's when we need the parking.
Okay, let me take that back. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I've got your name here, and I'll make sure that we reach back out to you on how we can address a particular issue.
Yeah, that might be something for the city to work on as well, or at least to know about.
Part of the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have another question?
I'm going to assume yes. I'm not the moderator here, but yeah, why not?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Our building is situated in what's going to be a very busy construction site. And we are kind of worried about whether during all of this construction and digging and so on, we might have some issues with our building, particularly damaged state of the foundation and such things. Can we expect that all of these matters will be taken carefully into consideration?
Oh, 100%. So again, we're a bit early in that construction detail. We're just trying to get the zoning and OP approved just to figure out the box of the building. But the next phase of this process, the site plan stage, as well as the building permit stage, that's where we get into a bit more detail on how we're going to be staging development and not impacting other lands. So in case of your property, we would have to prepare a construction management plan for this, which would detail for the city where we put construction equipment, where we're putting materials, how far we're digging, and the impacts to the other lands in terms of shoring or excavation. So all those details will have to be provided, approved before any work starts on the property. So you can hopefully take comfort in knowing that we'll have to do the homework for it, and it'll have to be approved by the city.
It sounds like an exciting project.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
David, do you have any other follow-up questions?
That's it for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Eleanor, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your last name correctly, Dukowicz. Go ahead, Eleanor.
You pronounced it exactly right. Well done.
Thank you.
I serve on the same board that Mr. Madison does, and so our questions have overlapped, but we are somewhat concerned that this is going to impact how we do business, and we are a school with children coming in and out. As far as in the evening, there's instrumental music, as well as the Memorial Band, which has been in operation since 1931. And so we've been around for quite some time. And a newer part of our organization, a community orchestra. And we practice and put on small concerts, not there. We usually, we find another spot to put on a concert. But I wonder if in your planning, if there is some way that the site that we are on could be updated as far as, and us being incorporated in your vision, so that it would, there could be, we have a main story and then a basement, because there's two classes of music going on at the same time, so that we use both ground level and underground for the music instruction and storing of instruments and storing of music and et cetera, et cetera. I wonder if we could, as a board of the Brantford School of Instrumental Music, be included in some of that planning. It's a valuable building to us. It doesn't look very good. We understand that. However, it is very, very important to us as an organization.
Okay, I've written that down. Can I ask you a question, Eleanor?
Yes.
Maybe this may be a question for another day or offline, but what were you kind of envisioning in that kind of incorporation into our project?
Well, we had been offered many years ago a pittance of an amount for buying the building, which I don't know whether that's your group or whether that was another group previously. And it was so low that we thought we couldn't take that money and find anywhere else to be able to do what we do. And I don't know whether your construction could include a building such as what we have, and then we could perhaps gift the land to you if you would build us something nice. That's pretty daring of me, I understand. However, we, and we don't specifically know right now what the value really of that building is. It's building with hardly any land. As Mr. Madison said, we park on the street. We are not allowed, according to the people that own the land, not allowed to use that parking lot even. Right. We just park on the street. And we would continue to do that. But, is there, so that we're just not sort of an eyesore. I'm afraid your building is going to look so beautiful that our building is just going to look like an eyesore.
Okay, that's an interesting proposition. That's a question that I certainly cannot answer right now.
No, and we would love to open up a conversation with a small group from our board.
I think that's fair. If you don't have my email address already, you can certainly get it from City Planning, and we can open that dialogue. I'm going to have to speak with my clients on that. I certainly can't make that decision right now, but the worst we can do is have a conversation on it. So why don't you give me a call if it's not tomorrow or maybe next week, and we'll start from there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Eleanor, do you have any more follow-up questions?
I think that's good for now.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be coming from Miranda Reese. Miranda, can you hear us?
I think she had a 6 o'clock meeting.
She might have.
Yeah.
Let me just. Miranda, can you hear us? Okay, she might be gone. We'll take our next question from Annette Wozenak. Annette, are you with us?
I'm here.
Go ahead,
Actually,
please.
just here to observe. Any questions
Okay.
I have, I think I could probably go through Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last question is from Brooke. Are you with us, Brooke? Hello, Brooke? Okay, she must have popped off as well. Is there any other questions from anyone that they would like to ask? David, would you like to ask another question?
Yes, I kind of wear two hats. I'm also one of the trustees for the Brantford School of Instrumental Music. So I think that the idea of pursuing a long-term lease within your building in exchange for the gifting of the land is an option we could pursue, provided we were given this similar type of square footage. I think it would be advantageous to both groups and to your development to not have to incorporate construction around a building that was built probably 1930 and is a frame construction. So I think that you've got some options, and I think I'm glad that Eleanor brought that out as well. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'll take that back, and we'll have some discussions likely next week or late this week and about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions? Seeing none, I will turn the meeting back over to either Nicole or Jeff.
Hi, I'll try to do a little bit of speaking at the end. Sorry about my voice. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. And thank you again, Jeff. You may have to jump in if I lose my voice. And I'll leave, maybe Councillor Wall, you have something to say, and I'll leave it up to you. And then I'll maybe wrap it up with how they can provide, either they want to provide more comments or questions, they can send it to me. And also ensure that Darlene or myself has your email or your mailing address so that we can advise you of the next steps in the planning process.
Nicole, just to interject, I do see Mr. David Madison's hand back up again.
Okay.
David, did you have another question for us?
Not a question. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, and we look forward to any further discussions. I have to leave at the moment. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And seeing no other questions, Councillor Wall, would you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm really excited at the prospect of this project, and I know that many other people are as well. I want to thank the agent and the owners and staff for all of your hard work pulling this together. A huge thank you to everybody who decided to attend tonight, and for anybody who is watching the live stream, thank you so much for tuning in, or watching the replay rather. And I just wanted to point out that, you know, my responsibility as one of your representatives is to make sure that your voice is heard and that your questions are heard in council chambers when this comes to committee and when this comes to council, if it comes to council, which, you know, who knows, we'll see what happens at committee. But if you want to reach out and ask any questions, it seems like everybody here is going to be super accommodating, staff, the agent, the developer, and it's really great to see somebody. I've spoken with these guys and they have a real passion for Brantford. They're very excited about bringing this to the community, and they want to make sure that people are happy, and they want to make sure that people feel like their needs and their voices are being heard, and I can really respect that. My direct number is 226-387-2229. You can call me anytime. My phone's always on, and I would love to talk to you about our downtown. And ultimately, yeah, thank you. And I can't wait for this to come to committee of whole and hear what other questions members of the public have at the public hearing, as well as what my colleagues on council say. So yeah, this is awesome. Thanks.
Thank you again, everyone. We can follow this up with, please email myself or Darlene, and I can provide any information that you require. And I'm available anytime. So thank you again. Have a great evening.